Hello, everyone. Welcome to Grid Live Wrap Up. Big show today, but we're mainly talking about the NASCAR Cup Series GEICO 500 at Talladega, or formerly E World Rally Championship. Link in the video description to the show earlier today, where we had Joshua Burst discussing Formula E. With me today for NASCAR, Ben Schneider and Amanda Kaufman. A big thank you to our Patreon subscribers calling the show, Mark Robin, and our newest one, David, for investing in the Grid Network each and every month. And of course, you can click the link in the video description, less than 5 minutes, help us pay the bills. You can also do Buy Me a Coffee. We'll read your name on the air as soon as we see you have purchased coffee for us. So 2 ways to support us here at the Grid Network. Ben, Amanda, what a race. We know Talladega is always, I feel it's becoming a lot more, not just of a wild card race, but in a way, a polarizing race when it comes to the fan base. We know for the longest drivers love it or hate it. Talladega, though, when they started the race with the opening ceremonies, I think everyone had to really love seeing the Alabama gang, Donnie Allison, Bobby Allison, Red Farmer given to command. 6 caution flags for incidents, not counting the stage cautions. But despite being in overtime, a second overtime, race ended under caution, and Kyle Busch took the win. First time in 15 years he won at Talladega. I think that's just impressive to say. It's been 15 years since he won at this track. I think it speaks highly about the unpredictable nature of this race. And it's the second win for him this year. He becomes the third driver to win 2 races this year. Amanda, starting with you. Surprised by Kyle Busch winning this race. And this is the third time I can remember him winning where he was in third place, beginning the last lap, ends it in first place.
Yeah, I mean, I think Kyle even said he surprised himself a little bit at the end there, when he decided to take that gamble, and not to pit again for fuel. And I think that, yeah, I think it's kind of just speaks to like what we were speaking about earlier about the unpredictability of the race and having to sometimes take a gamble, like he did, and in his case, it paid off. Unfortunately, having the 2 in front of him, not not get so lucky. So yeah, I think it's a great win for him, and I think another thing that put him in the position to be able to take such a big risk, he said, was having already banked that 1 win this year. So I think that with 2 under his belt, it's just going to embolden him to be even more, take even bigger risks throughout the rest of the season.
Yeah, Joe, would those 2 be Fontana 2013 and Bristol Dirt last year, I guess? Yeah, there you go. It's funny, Kyle Busch talked about Alex Bowman and some of the Hendrick guys backing in the wins. I don't know if you could call it that today. I guess Talladega is always unpredictable every time we go here, like you were saying. But, it's funny. I don't think of Kyle Busch as a particularly bad super speedway racer. In fact, during the beginning of his time with Joe Gibbs Racing, I feel like 2008, 2009 Daytona 500s, he was running up front for a lot of the race, was a favorite to win those. It's just kind of crazy. I guess, like you said, Joe, speaks to the unpredictability of these races that it's been so long since he won it, Daytona or Talladega. That's a streak I'm sure he was happy to end today. A little bit surprised, I suppose. He wasn't one of the names that I was thinking off the top of my head as a favorite to win today. But then again, there's a reason why we make a joke every time. You might as well pick a name out of a hat for pick a winner, because anybody who plays their cards right, plays the draft right, is in position at the end. They can win one of these races, and that's exactly what Kyle Busch was able to do today.
Kyle Busch able to get that win today, and overall, I think it has to be a huge boost of momentum, especially for all the doubters, considering he was going to Richard Childress Racing. Now he has 2 wins solidly in the playoffs and building up those valuable playoff points and separation from that round of 16 that goes to round of 12, 8, and then so on. That's just going to, I think, really help that 8 team overall, and to do it this early, Talladega. Could have easily won the Daytona 500. He was leading on lap 200 after all. Now he got the super speedway race, winning an overtime under caution, as we mentioned. The caution, of course, came out for the heartbreak. I think a lot of people were feeling. Bubba Wallace trying to get the win, led the white flag lap, battling with Ryan Blaney. The 2 of them collided. Very interesting. We know off the track the 2 of them are very close friends. But in the post-race interview, Blaney said, you got to do what you got to do what you got to do after 3 blocks. We've seen on social media, Bubba Wallace's interview. he seemed like he took the blame on himself. So it seems it's pretty interesting. Bubba felt like it was a little bit his fault. Ryan Blaney saying, I'm just doing what I have to do to try to get the win. Ben, do you agree with Blaney that at some point you got to do what you got to do and try to just go for that win?
I think so. And I know we were talking a little bit before the show started when we were backstage, but I don't know how we fix the culture here. I mean, the culture of super speedway racing didn't change after the 2020 Daytona 500. I'm not convinced it ever will, but this is just how we do it now. You know, it's inevitable that we're going to wreck with under 10 to go, and then we're going to line them up for an overtime, and then they're probably going to wreck again. Then they're going to have another overtime, and then they're going to say, well, let's at least get to the white flag lap, and then we'll wreck, and then we'll end the race under caution anyway. I mean, that's just always what seems to happen these super speedway races nowadays. So I can't, like you were saying, I can't really fault Bubba Wallace for doing what he did at the end of the race, because he knows that if he gets passed by Ryan Blaney there, if he doesn't make the block, he's going to get freight trained, and the only way he has a shot is if he gets some help from behind and is able to try to make a run back up again, but he's only got 3/4 of a lap to do it. And then in Blaney's case, if you've got to run, I think you have to take it, but Bubba's blocking, so it's inevitable that they're going to touch and they're going to wreck, and then, you know, we've got at least a half dozen cars torn up at the end, and that's just how it's going to be. But you know, I don't know what we want here necessarily. You know, we say the fans deserve a green flag finish. You know, we can't even get that when we try these multiple overtime attempts. It just seems very silly to me that we could have ended the race under caution. I know I'm being a dead horse, but I'm going to do it anyway. We could have ended the race under caution with a Logano crash with 5 to go, and it would have been probably disappointing for the fans. But fans of the drivers that got wrecked during each of the 2 overtimes today, I think they got to be feeling pretty disappointed right now too. So I don't know how we fix this. And I apologize. I saw a comment come up briefly. I didn't get a chance to read it here, so I don't know if we want to pull that up again. Okay, Adam Lemery's saying, feel bad for Bubba Wallace and Noah Gragson today. Had a shot to win, absolutely.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that. I think Bubba did pretty much everything right today. And with Ryan Blaney, I don't think that I interpreted his comments as that he even intended to wreck Bubba or had any malicious or unfair intentions. I just think that he was going for the win, so was Bubba. Neither was willing to give, and it ended up badly for both of them. So, yeah, just like Ben said, I don't know what would have to change, if it's a matter of how the drivers think about ending the races, or if this new overtime rule is mostly to blame for the way that we've seen these past few races end this season. But yeah, I definitely feel for Bubba and the 2311 team, as I think they did everything right today.
Everything right. And for Bubba Wallace, considering what happened in Atlanta, Daytona was another fast car. They keep showing up with these fast vehicles, getting them torn up at the end. One thing I know, especially at Daytona, we hear this quite a bit. People using that saying, bring me the trophy or just the steering wheel. And I feel like, okay, I get it. You got to go for the win. The Daytona 500 is the biggest race. We're here at Talladega. Yes, I know a win gets you in the playoffs. If you're a driver like Todd Gillian or those smaller teams, this is your golden opportunity. But I feel like we don't see them exactly causing some of the big crashes, even though they're not exactly up front, whereas Bubba Wallace, Ryan Blaney battling for the win. Chase Elliott, Eric Almirola, they both got stage wins today. Almirola had a really great day. He was one of those drivers we talked about in the pre-race show. He could really capitalize on a win. Came home 21st, being listed right now. We know NASCAR is still working on some of the results because it came out at the time of caution where you still had vehicles wrecking. Noah Gragson, overall, he was having a pretty good day. That last restart to start off overtime, Chastain got him a little up high, tried to go for the gap in the middle between him, Almirola. Gregson got the worst of it, but even getting worse, Kyle Larson, talking about a team that has a torn up car, slides up the track in front of Ryan Preece. Hard impact. We saw the roll cage on the passenger side, thankfully, caved in. Tony Stewart said on there, I would not want that to be the driver's side. Ryan Preece on the onboard camera, that hit was so hard, the visor lid came open. You could see his eyes. Tony Stewart again saying he's going to be sore in the morning. And we know there's a safety concerns with these vehicles after last year, the hard hits and concussions. How concerning was it to see those two hard impacts, considering the safety of the drivers? And we're still hoping that the changes from last this offseason make a improvement.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely concerning to see, that hit. Just knowing that Ryan Preece had opened up the throttle and really just stepped on the gas there and kind of was giving it us all. And that's when he went into the side of Larson. And I have to agree that I'm glad it was the passenger side, but it was really shocking to see just the roll cage bent up like that. And it kind of made me question what it would look like on the other side. And hopefully, I don't know if it was designed to bend in that way as a safety mechanism, or if we witnessed a failed safety mechanism today. But either way, I mean, I'm glad to see that they both walked away okay, obviously. But yeah, I think it's definitely concerning, and I'd be interested to see what comes out of a crash like that.
Yeah, I think we can officially add the "everything that's still ailing NASCAR, this is a panacea for what that is" quote to the 8 out of 10 fans, and the "we like what we're seeing" quotes as well. I'm very concerned. And this is not a new concern with the next gen car. I know we've had this when we've been at super speedway races in the past, and obviously the concerns with the injuries to Kurt Busch and Alex Bowman last year, and Kurt in particular still not being cleared to get back in the car. I just don't even want to imagine if, like you were saying, Joe, if that had happened to Kyle Larson's car on the driver's side, we might be having a very different conversation right now. And again, Ryan Preece is on board, and this is nothing new too. We've seen the onboards, from several other hard hits with this next gen car. I'll be the first to admit I'm not an engineer. I don't know how we, fix these issues. I don't know, what goes into, building these cars or the safety aspects of these cars, as well as a lot of other people do, I'm sure. But I can tell you this from an outsider's perspective, this car does not look very safe right now. It looks like we've taken a step back in safety, and that's something that, in this day and age is simply unacceptable in so many ways. So I hope that, and I know that, NASCAR's had these conversations and they're talking about it and they're trying to, figure out what to do. But at the same time, we've got 2 more super speedway races this year, 3 if you throw Atlanta, I suppose, now in there, where we're going to have these conversations come back up again. So, to sum it up, yeah, it's definitely a concern of mine, and it's not gotten any better after today.
Yeah, I'm anticipating hopefully that we're going to see something that Kyle Larson car is going to the R&D center to be evaluated to see about that, because I think, as Matt had mentioned, is that side designed to sort of cave, absorb some of the energy? And maybe it's different on the other side, the driver's side. I'm not an engineer. We don't know either, but still, it was very concerning just seeing that. And then, of course, Priest getting that hard hit as well, too. Anytime you have violent motion of the head, always a big concern. Overall, the safety of these cars, it's still a concern, not just when it comes to Talladega, but we haven't seen drivers, thankfully, hit the wall back in first, like we saw last year a couple times, where we saw Bowman, Kurt Busch miss races. I'm hopeful if that was to happen at some point, the improvements from NASCAR does make a difference and we don't have repeat of last year. I know one of the things, the manufacturers, last year I felt they seemed to all better work together, the Fords with the Fords, Chevys with themselves, and Toyotas, of course, their lone selves with only 6 vehicles. But today it appeared that wasn't the case. Brad Keselowski was even complaining about the Fords were not working together like they usually do. The Toyotas, they were spread out throughout the field, where you had Denny Hamlin up to the front, some in the back, Bubba all the way in the lead pack, lead in. Chevrolets, they have the strength in numbers. It seems like they can almost work in 2 groups. Did any manufacturer exiting this race look like the overall favorite for Daytona, the regular season finale? Because I did not get a sense like any manufacturer is that much further ahead than anybody.
Yeah, I don't think so, Joe. I mean, you could maybe say Toyota's at a disadvantage just because of their numbers, which we always bring up. And, like you mentioned today, I think, there were some issues getting on a pit road and communication as to what happened there. But they're always going to be at a disadvantage because they don't have as many cars out there as the Chevrolets and the Fords do. I got to say, I personally miss the days of, thinking back to tandem drafting. Tony Stewart really liked working with David Gilliland. He drove a Chevy, David drove a Ford, and it wasn't a problem for most of the season. And then I think before the final race, Ford kind of stepped in and said, "Hey, we'd like our drivers to work with each other and put the manufacturer orders in there." And I guess that kind of started this trend that we see now. But they weren't the only ones. I feel like Regan Smith, Furniture Row, was with Chevy at the time, was working with Kurt Busch, who was still at Penske and a Dodge. So I wonder if, would benefit Toyota to maybe, try to form some alliances with maybe it doesn't even have to just be a manufacturer. Maybe they go to one Ford group or one Chevy group and see if, they can work out a deal and say like, hey, if we're, close to each other on track at the end of the race, do you want to try to work together? I don't know if Chevy or Ford would be on board with that, but I think Toyota certainly from a number standpoint is going to be at a disadvantage. But I don't see a clear leader from Chevy or Ford either today. I guess you could say Chevy because they won Daytona with Stenhouse and Talladega today with Kyle Busch. But I don't see a clear cut advantage heading into the next race necessarily just yet.
Yeah, I'd have to agree that it didn't seem that like the manufacturer alliance or help really made any difference today in today's race and the overall result. But it did kind of seem like, in my opinion, in the beginning, that the Toyotas looked like they were working together, and that even if Bubba was out front or someone else was out front, it seemed like Denny did a good job of being a leader in there, and kind of dictating when they moved up or how they were moving. But yeah, I think overall it didn't seem to make a big difference in today's race. But yeah, I'd be interested to see how it plays out over the rest of the season. And I have to agree with everything Ben just said about Toyota, being that they have so few cars compared to the rest of the manufacturers, that they might want to look into teaming up to give themselves a better chance when it gets to the end of the race and put themselves in a better position for when they do need that help.
That help will be very, I think, helpful for the Toyota group. The big thing I feel, especially agreeing with you all, Daytona, the Chevrolets, they just looked really strong qualifying day. We get to the race, it seems like the Fords were hard to beat. Today, I really just did not get any sense anybody had some clear advantage. We saw in qualifying, the Fords were way up in the front. The Toyotas, Kyle Larson, Austin Dillon, the only two Chevys in the top 15. I'm really going to be interested to see what's going to happen when we reach Daytona. Of course, I'll be under the lights, so it's not exactly a handling track like the daytime race. Atlanta, I think, is going to be very interesting and well, too, considering the pack racing nature of that track now. And then Talladega, the playoff race, that's going to be very interesting. And a comment in the chat room from behind the mic. 17 Chevrolets, 5 Fords, 6 Toyotas. Yeah, Toyotas, they need to work on their numbers, because when you have 17 Chevrolets, you could literally have two groups of Chevrolets pit on different laps. And you'll still be okay. Made me sort of think of the pressure. Maybe this is why we saw Tyler Reddick really push it to try to get in pit road, spin, cost himself, because he knew if he did an extra lap, he had no Toyotas to help him out. Everybody was all pitted.
Joe, let's throw Jimmy Johnson in there. Let's say he decided to run this race for whatever reason. That would be literally 3 times strength in numbers for Chevrolet over Toyota there. So they could have 3 groups, over Toyota's 1. So they definitely they either need to go recruit and try to get some teams to switch manufacturers, or they need to try to work some deals out, because they're not going to win the strength in numbers game, with these numbers here.
Strength in numbers means a lot in the super speedway. Super speedway, at least each one of the tracks, Daytona and Talladega, their first race behind us. We'll throw in there Atlanta because it's a packed track. Almost feel like calling these, they're not restrictor plates because they don't use restrictor plates, but they're definitely packed racing tracks. Atlanta, the only one to not go into overtime and under green flag, surprisingly. And to start with you, how will you rate this race for Talladega compared to Atlanta and Daytona this year?
Well, I'm going to base my rating off of how satisfied I felt at the end. I think with Daytona, it felt like it would never end. So I was a little disappointed there. And then for this race, it did seem like I mean, I felt bad for Bubba. I think it felt like a little bit of a robbery at the end due to the overtime rule. So I think that when comparing the three, I think Atlanta sticks out in my memory as one of the best races of the three. So I think that that's how I'd have to rank them for today.
Yeah, I think Ryan Blaney's got to feel robbed too. I think he had a strong car all day there, especially towards the end. Probably would have won the race if the overtime rule didn't exist. But that's just, the way we do things nowadays here in NASCAR. I gotta agree with you. I think Atlanta wins by default just because it didn't go into overtime. We got the scheduled distance. We didn't see a massive wreck at the end. I don't know what I would put this above or below Daytona necessarily. I feel like it kind of ended the same way. We had multiple attempts at an overtime. We still finished under yellow anyway, and the cameras all panned to the crash instead of a leader. So at the moment of caution, it took us a second to realize who had won. So I feel like it was almost identical in that respect. But I would definitely put Atlanta over all of them as the best of the three.
I think I'm gonna make it unanimous because Atlanta, that race overall, while the trucks, Xfinity, the race weekend wasn't that great. The Cup Series, it seemed like they put together a good race. Overall, good solid race in there, at least if you enjoyed the pack stuff. Daytona, this is just something where I feel it does get a little old, tiresome to see the mayhem of stage three. So many races, not just Daytona, Talladega, quite a lot. It seems like we have pretty calm one, maybe two cautions in stage one, stage two. Then we have the stage breaks. And then that third stage, it just seems like maybe this is something where, along with the package we have at these pack tracks, that lack of respect, as Kyle Busch has mentioned earlier in the year, might be shown because it just seems when you have the moves, like you only got 2 laps to go, you're going to stick in the middle, cause Gregson to take out several others. Bubba Wallace making that block to try to save for the win. Of course, a win means so much. It just seems like this just adds for not exactly the best look for NASCAR, but overall, I just feel it's just one of those deals where I think Talladega will rank ahead of Daytona for me, but Atlanta, overall, a solid weekend for the Cup Series, and at least something where fans could watch and I feel enjoy compared to just wondering, here we go again, another overtime because we got another crash.
I just want to clarify, that was not me endorsing the new Atlanta Superspeedway. It was a very low bar for me to cross over with the finishes that we got at Daytona, Talladega. People know how I feel about overtime. So I think Atlanta wins by default, but I still prefer the old Atlanta and the old Atlanta before that over the Atlanta that we currently have, just to clarify. But let's get into a grid ranking update here. Week 4, the grid ranking is out, and Max Verstappen continues to lead. There are plenty of changes behind him, though. In the top 10, Christopher Bell has fallen out, so no NASCAR driver or American driver actually in the top 10. Brock Feeney is the third Supercars driver to crack the top 10, though. Bell fell to 13th, as you can see there on the screen. Kyle Larson moved down to 18th. Kyle Busch is up a few ticks to 24th. Formula E, the same top 5 are in the grid ranking, and for the World Rally Championship, that is the case as well. However, Nick Cassidy has made it into the top 20. You see him up there in 14th as one of the biggest movers. Terry Neuville fell to 29th, the lowest WRC driver of those in the grid ranking. So, Joe, I've got a WRC question here for you. Neuville has been on the podium each round. The first race not to finish on the podium for him this weekend. Is he closer to that first win of 2023?
I still feel he's getting closer to that first win in 2023. I feel that with Thierry Neuville, especially you follow him in World Rally Championship quite often, it always seems that he'll start off some bad luck here, not some great races here, but then towards the end of the season, he starts getting it together, gets a couple wins like he did last year, 2022, 2 wins towards the end of the season. This year, he's had this pace. He's been strong. Things didn't work out, but he always had those podium finishes leading the first day. We get to Saturday morning, still leading until he goes off the track, hits a tree, done for the day. Done for the weekend, essentially. 33rd place finish in World Rally Championship. I still think he's continuing that right track and right momentum. The big thing is he just has to put together that perfect race to win this. We saw Sebastian Ogier That penalty for racing without his safety belt being completed after changing a tire. 1 minute penalty. That costed him the race. Cali Rovanpera, a flat tire. That cost him the race. Elfin Evans getting the win. Thierry Neuville, I do feel, is going to get that win. If he could get it much sooner, he could really then put himself as a serious championship contender. Because I feel in the past years with those late starts, we talk about him as being a contender next year. Well, this is that next year. He's off to a great start. This is a tough break, but I feel if he could come back, get another podium, try to go for that win, I think he should be able to do it.
We'll keep our eye on that as the season continues on. But now, Joe, I'll throw it back over to you for a grid EPI update.
Yeah, grid API update. 2 season opening races this weekend for the Grid Endurance Performance Index current at Barcelona. We'll show you the top 10 coming into this race weekend. Over at Barcelona, the former EPI leader Salih Yolak took his racing team Turkey to victory alongside Charlie Iswood and Luis Deltres in the opening round of the European Le Mans Series. So they're hoping to climb back up. Of course, Salih was the week 1 leader of the Grid Endurance Performance Index, so he'll love to gain some points, try to get up into the lead again as you take a look at the entire week 2, week 3 coming out on Wednesday. We also had Jacqueline Wolf, Antoine Dequin, and Fabienne Michael took the win in LMP3 with Ryan Harwick, Zach Robinson, and Alessio Pecorello took home the top points in GTE at Monza. The GT World Challenge will kick off with a 3-hour race with Rome BMW taking 1-2. Overall, a very exciting weekend for the Grid Endurance Performance Index. And of course, every Wednesday on Grid Tonight, that's when the new week will come out. So Matt White will be there to release week 3 of the Grid Endurance Performance Index. And you can follow that all on Grid Ranking on Twitter and our website, gridranking.com.
All right, now it's time for us to share our one shining moment of the weekend. So we encourage all of you watching, as always, to share your one shining moment from the race weekend. Feel free to drop that in the comments. So we'll start with you, Joe. What was your one shining moment from this weekend?
My one shining moment has to come at the end of World Rally Championship, and I think it didn't matter which driver was going to do this. We knew one of them would, whoever won the race. With the Irish flag there for Craig, that was an emotional moment because this was a hard race weekend to get back in the same race where you know one of your colleagues passed away testing for this race. We saw Thierry Neuville had the lead. He would have loved to gotten the win in that car with the special Irish flag livery, unable to. But all the drivers showed essentially their respect, paid tribute to Craig Breen all weekend long, with only 2 cars from each of the manufacturers being scored. Then Elfin Evans to get the first win of the year, dedicated to Craig Breen, and have that Irish flag there. That was why one shining moment.
Let me give a call to Todd Gilliland. I know Front Row Motorsports hasn't historically been seen as one of the top teams in the sport, though they have shown steady improvement over the last few years. And Todd in particular, I know struggled last season and ended up getting shuffled out of that car for a few races this year, including today being in the 36. But he's making the most of his opportunities. He picked up a race with Rick Ware to make sure he could stay full-time. And he just picked up his 3rd top 10 of the year today. So he is showing that I think he deserves some stability and another full-time opportunity in this sport in the Cup Series. So great job for Todd Gilliland today to bring it home with a top 10 despite all the craziness at the end. That is my one shining moment.
I have to agree with both of those. But for mine, I think I would have to give it to Chase Elliott and his stage win, especially after the doubts that I know a lot of us voiced last weekend about whether or not he'd be ready or if this was the right choice for him to be back for this race. But to see him pull that off, I think was great to see and a good sign for what he can hopefully continue to do throughout the rest of the season if he remains healthy.
Definitely 3 great shining moments. And of course, we encourage everyone to chat, share your shining moments as well. Also, want to check out the Pick a Winner standings. Next weekend is going to be 8 races, 3 supercar races, the 2 MotoGP P races. Then you have NASCAR, IndyCar, Formula One, 8 races. So 2 bonus points. If you get all 8 correct, I think that's going to be harder than winning the lottery. And we have a 4-way tie for the lead between Edward Hunter, Kobe Lambeth, Matt White, and Alex Fleener getting Nick Cassidy correct. This is just phenomenal, I feel. We know Kobe is the only person to win the championship and pick a winner. If he gets it this year, he really had to battle, but it is still so close. I mean, technically, anybody, even if they're not on the board, if they were to get all 8 right, they could be tied for the lead, assuming the top 4 don't get anybody right.
Yeah, I was busy this weekend. I was away during the Xfinity race yesterday. I went to both the Phillies game and the Union game yesterday, and then realized I hadn't gotten all my picks in. And by the time I realized it was today, and the only race left was Talladega. And like I said earlier in the show, we always make that joke. You might as well be picking out of a hat. So I said, you know what? I think I'll just sit this weekend out here and avoid trying to pick somebody. I certainly wouldn't have picked Kyle Busch. I can tell you that much. Not necessarily shocked that he got the win today, but certainly it wasn't on one of the top favorites list either. I don't think for a lot of people, considering it's his first super speedway win in 15 years. But great to see a good fight up at the front for pick a winner, and we'll see. It might look a little bit different next week with how many races we got to choose from. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, it's going to be something else. Seeing what happens next race weekend. Pick a winner. And of course, you can follow that on all our social media accounts on Grid Ranking, Grid Network. You can find us on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. We live stream on Twitch as well. So if you're on Twitch for video games, you can catch our programs there as well. Encourage everyone, invest in the Grid Network. So one-time contribution through Buy Me a Coffee. You set the amount. You can buy us multiple cups of coffee or even a particular on-air personality coffee, or through Patreon, where each month your investment goes to helping the entire team, help us pay the bills, get to the track. We're getting to the busy season. We're approaching May, the month of May, then the month of June. Portland, we're going to have 2 races out here in NASCAR, Formula E, a very exciting summer, and we'll love to have some of our Grid colleagues come out to Portland International Raceway. And of course, a very exciting week ahead. Ben, you got an eventful show tomorrow with Grid Encore, Talladega, ARCA, and Joshua's going to be there to talk about the British Touring Cars Championship season race. That's going to be a lot of fun. Wednesday, Grid tonight, Kobe Lambeth, Matt Wife, and Joshua Birch. Friday, myself, Daniel. I know we have several female racers to talk about from ARCA, so we hope to see you on the air Friday as well too, Ben. And then we'll do this all over again. Saturday, a big weekend of races, 8 races, 10 points on pick a winner. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Joe, I might have to pre-record something for you on Friday because I'm actually driving up that morning to head to Massachusetts. So I'm going to be there for a little while. So the background, I guess, will look the same on Monday night. But next time you see me, we'll get situated up there as I begin to start my new real life job, so to speak. But not sure I can make this Friday's show, but maybe we can talk about that as we move forward in the week here.
Definitely a lot of options. And also, one shining moment, I think, from everyone in the Grid Network, we got to share Matthew Bro, who usually is here, got a great job as well. He's still part of the Grid Network, going to be involved. Had to cut back on his schedule a little bit, but I think from all of us here in Grid Network, a big congratulations to him on his role. You can find it on Twitter, his announcement. For Amanda and Ben, I'm Joe. Thank you for watching today's program. We'll see you next time. Thank you for watching us right here on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe and check out some of our other videos, including Life on the Grid, where we interview folks from the motorsports industry. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.